Hey guys, this is Luke, and today we are looking at Genesis chapter 3. I've got a special guest. Football season starts this week, so I've got my little friend, the cowboy garden gnome. His name is Carl, okay? And here he is, and he's with us today, and that's pretty cool. Hey, we're talking about Genesis chapter 3, and that is the chapter where, boom! Everything changes. Nothing is ever the same after Genesis chapter 3. We've got the serpent. He comes along, Satan, and he tempts and deceives Eve. He tries to end the story right then and there. He comes to her and he tempts her. God's given Adam and Eve this one rule. Don't eat from one particular tree. Don't eat the fruit from one tree. That's it. Just one rule. One tree. That's pretty simple. She comes along, she's tempted by the enemy, by the deceiver, and she looks at it. She looks at that fruit, and it looks so good. And she plucks it, and oh, it looks so good. So she takes a bite. Oh, and it's so good. And then she offers it to her husband, and he could have said no. He could have at that point said, no, I don't think so. He was standing nearby. He could have stopped the whole process at any point, but he didn't. There's a lesson there. And he takes it, he eats it too, and boom! Everything changes. Nothing is ever the same. Separation is introduced into the human race. Separation is introduced into history, and shame is introduced. And suddenly they feel shame for the very first time. Adam and Eve realize all of a sudden that they're naked. Oh, we're naked! All of a sudden they feel shame. All of a sudden, for the first time, they feel vulnerable. They've moved out of God's covering. They've moved out of God's protection. And all of a sudden, they feel shame. Then shame moves to blame because God comes down. And God's walking around in the garden, and he sees them. And all of a sudden, he's like, who told you you were naked? Who did you listen to? Who did you go to for validation rather than me? And Adam, because he has shame, it leads to blame. And all of a sudden, it was the woman that you gave me. And he's putting the blame on everybody else. He's putting the blame on Eve. He's putting the blame on God. And so shame leads to blame. And then blame leads to flame. Because God comes along and he sets up this flaming sword. He banishes them from the garden. He banishes them from paradise. And the human race is exiled from paradise because of that. He sets up the flaming sword. So shame leads to blame, leads to flame. But here's the good news. It's not the end of the story. It could have been. It could have been real easily. That could have been the Bible right there. 3 chapters, boom, boom, boom. Would have been, just a really short thing. But it's not the end of the story. Adam and Eve had broken the one rule. They've broken God's heart. They have broken everything. They've broken the human race. But one thing they haven't broken is God's love. One thing they haven't broken was God's determination to bring them home. And so God sets his plan in motion to unbreak his creation, to rescue them, to bring them back home. That includes us. Now the story of our sin, the story of humanity's sin, begins with a tree and ends on a tree. It begins with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then finally it ends with the cross that Jesus dies on. Okay, first tree offers fruit that leads to death, and the second tree offers a death that leads to life. Everything changed in Genesis chapter 3, but God sets a plan in motion to get us back, to rescue us, to bring us home, to unbreak us. And I am so glad. Hope you guys have a great day. Tell me what God is saying to you. I love you.